Just want to take a moment to reflect how New York ISO is using our markets and coordinating our processes to support energy policy goals while we fulfill our core mission. When you look at the track record of markets, you can see that markets themselves, even before we've addressed this period of aggressive energy policy, markets themselves introduce efficiencies that have driven us toward a cleaner system. The overall efficiency that's necessary to be successful in markets typically yields to the more efficient and in most cases cleaner resource to be scheduled more frequently. So when you look at the 20-year trend of emissions since the New York ISO markets have existed, markets themselves really do a good job of driving down pollutants and emitting resources. So we think that it's a valuable tool to coincide with the policies and continue to drive a cleaner grid. It's also important to recognize the context of how the electric sector contributes to the overall economy-wide carbon output from New York anyway. The energy sector in New York is already clean. Some of this we think is the benefits of markets and the efficiencies that they introduce, but it's also the fuel mix and the plentiful hydro, nuclear, and already renewable base that's installed within New York. So we think that we're already well along on our way. If you look at looking to the future generation mix, this is an image that shows the proposed projects that are in our interconnection queue, a number of megawatts within each region or each zone as according to the individual fuel type. So these projects are what's proposed. Not all of these projects will get built. It will depend a lot on developer costs and how their projects move forward and financing and other factors. But we're pleased to see that a lot of the new entrants proposed to come onto our grid heavily dominated by renewable resources. Wind, both onshore and offshore, as well as an increasing number of solar and storage projects that we see being proposed. One aspect that we need to pay close attention to, though, is as new renewable resources get deployed, it's important to make sure that we have adequate infrastructure to take advantage of those benefits. One of the things we do here at the NYISO is we try to monitor, track, and publish the impact that the transmission system is seeing from some of these new resources based on where they're located. And in many instances, we find that if the generation resources are not located in a region that's close enough to the load, the transmission infrastructure becomes very, very important to make sure that we can transmit that resource or the output of that resource to the load. And one of the measurements by which we can see how well that infrastructure is doing its job is to look at curtailments of wind. So a lot of times we can get into periods of high wind production, but if it's a low load period or if there's other reasons why that transmission system is constrained, then the wind gets curtailed. As more wind resources come onto the system, it's going to be very important to monitor and track the frequency and the rate of those curtailments so that we can identify areas where additional transmission infrastructure is going to be warranted. And we do that on a regular basis and make sure we publish that information for everyone to understand. One example of how transmission policy has worked really well to support the overall goals is in the public policy transmission planning process. And these are some recent successes where in collaboration and partnership with the New York State Public Service Commission, we've been able to move forward on 2 projects to upgrade the transmission system, specifically geared towards the goal of improving the amount of renewable power that we can deliver across the grid. The Western New York Public Policy Transmission Project was really designed to maximize the amount of hydropower that we could move and deliver out of the Niagara plant. And the AC Transmission Project is really geared towards upgrading that backbone, which goes from the central part of the state near Utica over to Albany and down through the Hudson Valley. And that will serve to significantly increase the amount of power from upstate. We're going to be able to move down towards the load center in New York City. And as we showed on the previous chart, increasingly that amount of that new generation is wind and renewable power. So this is, we think, a good story, but we're continuing to monitor the placement and location of some of these resources to ensure that we can continue to deliver the power from where it's generated to where it's consumed.